live from Indianapolis. It's Saturday night. Oh, no, wait. Oh, back up, rewind. It's the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. This is Tom Merrill, live from FDIC 2025, with my guest here this afternoon, Captain Michael Dugan. Cap, thanks for being here to join me this afternoon. Must remind everybody before we start that this podcast is brought to you by Firehouse Subs. That's the firefighter-founded hot sub chain with a passion for hearty and flavorful food, heartfelt service, and public safety. Ready for your next mission? Firehouse Subs is offering firefighters the opportunity to continue serving after service, now as restaurant owners. And you can learn more at www.firehousesubfranchising.com. And they do have very good subs. I've certainly had many of them over the years. And now, Captain Mike Dugan, welcome to the show. Have you also had Firehouse Subs?
I have had Firehouse Subs, Tom, and you can tell by my size, I don't mind missing meals. I don't miss many, but I have had my share of Firehouse Subs, and they are very, very good.
Well, they are good. They certainly have had many over the years. And again, if anybody's interested to open a franchise, if you're looking to continue to serve after your service here is done, again, go to www.firehousesubfranchising.com. So, Cap, here we are, another FDIC. I was saying that within 5 minutes of being here, I was already recharged, re-energized, and just ready to get back home and get back at it. It just never ceases to amaze me.
It's been amazing, and today is only Wednesday, but I've got to say, I started Monday morning with the 8 a.m. Workshop, and my workshop was double the attendance of last year.
Wow.
The numbers are crazy. The hallways are insane. It's just great. And being back at FDIC and seeing our friends and seeing the people as we go through all of this stuff is just a great thing. So it's really good to be here. And we had the opening ceremonies today. If you didn't see them, definitely look online, stream them, find them. Mike Ciampo did an amazing job.
Amazing.
Dave Rhodes at the end was hysterical, and I'm not going to tell you what he did because you got to go look for it, but it was hysterical. It was so funny. And just listening to everything today, and they paid tribute to our good friend Bill Gustin, who is no longer with us, and that was very, very moving. So, and, you know, FDIC, it's where we catch up, where we see friends, where we meet these people, our professional acquaintances that we catch up with. I have a friend from Australia that I run into every year here.
Oh, yeah, you've introduced me to him. Yes.
And it's amazing. So it's just such a cool place to be. It's such a happening thing.
It really is. You know, the networking is second to none. I talk about it all the time. And even just in the last few days that I've been here, running into people that maybe I just met once last year. Now we're friends for life. And I may only see them here, but it's like we haven't skipped a beat. We immediately talk about common things and just share the excitement, share the love of this fire service that we are so honored to be part of. And some of them from my department are here for the first time. And they are talking about just how they're never going to miss it again because they know now what we've been talking about back home for all these years. And they're just so happy to be here. And if you ever get a chance, if you've never been, please put it on your bucket list because it probably won't be a one and done for you either because for me, it started 20-something years ago and haven't missed many, maybe a couple here and there when children were born, but that was about it. I've been here every year, and I got hooked immediately. It hooks you. It gets made part of your DNA to come here and just experience it. And again, I was here no more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes on Sunday when I was already hooked and thinking, okay, when is it next year? I got to block my calendar because there's nothing like FDIC. And the classes. In addition to the opening ceremony today, I've been in several classes. When I wasn't presenting mine yesterday, I had a great turnout for mine. We had a great conversation about all things professional. Got a few new ideas on things to introduce to my presentation because people are always bringing new ideas to me. They're talking about things that they've experienced back home or things that they've tried back home or even things that maybe they've seen happen around the country that contribute or detract from that professional culture that I talk about all the time. So I already got pages of notes to go back home and tweak my presentation and talk about other things in my presentations around the country that all have to do with the professional equation. So I'm fired up, man. I'm ready for, another year of instructing, another year of being out there with the brothers and sisters and talking about this great fire service that we just love so much. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is so amazing, and the thing is, the sharing of knowledge. I mean, we honored Bill Guston, and Bill was a lifelong learner, sitting in the front of classes his entire career and learning and taking notes and being the lifelong learner and passing it on. I was just talking to a friend of mine who I know, telling him what another friend of ours told us about a book, 30 Fires You Must Know. And I said, one of my friends in the fire department assigned the book, One Fire, to each one of the kids in his firehouse. And one night a week, they have to sit down and drill, and the kid has to go over that fire that he's assigned. And I'm like, that's brilliant.
That's a
brilliant.
Great idea.
Now, another friend of mine has a guy who's coming back from some hard times, from PTSD and everything else. And he said, I got him in training. And I said, give a book report on this book, The 30 Fires You Must Know. And I said, why don't you send him out to firehouses to get back in with the brothers and sisters and have them give the report for a drill in that firehouse? He's like, that's the greatest thing I never thought of.
Right.
And sharing that information, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. That's what this whole thing is about, is gaining information, sharing information, and finding out what works and what can make you and your brothers and sisters better firefighters. How you can get more involved and be better at what we do. As the guys in the FDNY, Eileen Brennan's father used to say, Eileen Brennan Crest, who will give out the Lifetime Achievement Award tomorrow, her father, Tommy Brennan, used to say, you can never train enough for a job that might kill you. It's also said by Patty Brown, an iconic member of the FDNY. So these are the things we want to get out there. We want to learn training. We want to understand what is going on. And it's so important that we do this and we get these things to our members. Now, very honestly, some of your volunteer fire departments, I'm not going to talk to a small bedroom community volunteer fire department about high-rise fires. The biggest building they have in their district is 3 stories. But I'm going to talk about bread and butter operations. Okay? That's what you want to find. When you get to this place, when you get to FDIC, you want to find out what your department has and what can work for you. Mm-hmm. And what you can learn from people who are doing the type of things that you do in your department.
Yeah, and quite frankly, it's not hard to find something that'll apply back home. And you're probably going to have a challenge of figuring out what class you want to take out of the several that will apply back home because there's so many to choose from. So I was using the app even for myself, and I was flagging 3 or 4 for each of the time periods I was free to go to a class, and I had a heck of a time still narrowing it down to things that would apply to me back home because there's just such a wide range of great topics.
Such a diverse idea of topics. Now, there are a couple of things that I have to say about that if you are from a department like your department, okay, and you send a group of guys here, when we used to come, when I first started, when I was coming with other guys in the fire service, we would say, okay, I'm going to this one, go to a different one. I'll take notes, and we'll compare the notes. We'll go over the notes. Each of us go to a different class and get different things. And then our chief used to make us come back and give a report at a department meeting on what we learned and what we can do for the department. Have a drill on what you learned. Okay, if you learn something at FDIC and you keep it to yourself, it benefits nobody. But if you pass it on to the entire department, it benefits everybody. And that's how your department gets more and more and more professional.
And you know, it just adds to the brotherhood and sisterhood. You get so fired up, you go to these classes, you take your notes, and as the captain said, you diversify, you send people to different classes, and then you meet up later on and over dinner, and tonight networking out and about, you talk about the things you learned. I remember as a young officer going back to the fire, or to our table afterwards, talk about, okay, we're gonna do a drill on these things, and here's how we're gonna do the drill. And we would come home so fired up, so pumped up to present the information that we learned. And here's another thing for the volunteer side of things, folks. The professional volunteer fire department, not only do they get out and go to training, not only do they come back and present drills on that training, but the leadership in that department holds their people accountable that they're going to go to the training. In other words, what I've seen happen is some people go to conferences like this and don't go to the classes. They're too busy having fun. They're too busy out and about during class hours doing anything but go to classroom training. Well, that's not the professional thing to do. Yes, have fun and network and have a good time, but when it's class time, it's go time, and you get your butt in the classrooms. Yeah, you might have to get up a little early, but you know what? That's the real reason that you're here. And your residents back home are going to benefit by you coming here and learning this information and being in those classes and talking about the information and training on the information. The time to have fun is later on. So fire department leadership needs to make sure they're holding their people accountable, and quite frankly, fire department leadership needs to hold themselves accountable, because sometimes they're the ones that are coming to the conferences and not participating in the class. And I'm sure you'd agree with me. That's just
100%. It's
That's
100%.
just wrong.
It's wrong. It's wrong. And listen, if you're going to come here just to drink beer, okay, that's fine. Send somebody else to go to the classes.
Right.
You know, don't come here and not take advantage of all of the things that are offered here. The diversity of the classes for different things. You know, there's EMS, there's active shooter, there's every kind of different thing, wildland interface. We could go on and on and on about whether it's pump operations, whether it's ladder company. We could go on and on and on. And let's be honest, you might be in a small volunteer department that doesn't have a truck company, and you're thinking about starting one. This is the place to come and get some ideas and ask people for help. I guarantee you 99% of the instructors will say, here's my email.
Absolutely.
Email me. Send me an email, and I will send information to you. I will get you what I can to help you. Listen, that's what this networking is all about, and it's such a good thing.
It is.
And it helps so many different brothers and sisters out there.
You know, I could think back over the years of just people that I've met, even before I was an instructor here. One of my first times here, I'm in class with Andy Fredericks, engine company operations, outside. And I'll never forget, just like I was intimidated, I was shaking in my boots, and I knew who Andy Fredericks was by all means, and he came up and talked to me and made me feel like I was his friend. And it was just an amazing experience, and that's how it always is here. Just humble people that are here to share the knowledge.
And very honestly, every instructor I know, yourself included, says, hey, listen, if you see me in the hall, say hello. Let's catch up. We'll find out what's going on in your department, what's going on in your world. And that's how the fire service is. We are a unique organization.
100%.
I say the fire service is the only organization in the nation where men and women want to do more. Mm-hmm. Okay? You go to most jobs, can I hide a little bit? Can I get in the corner? Can I duck my way out of this? Can I pass on this? You go to the fire service and they say, hey, what else can I do? Can I do more? You know, you ask any firefighter, you know, do you want to go to another fire? You want to go on another run? And what's their answer always?
Yes.
Absolutely. When can we go?
Yeah.
Is it now?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's get me out
Let's
of
go.
here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got to say one thing about Bill Gusson, because, you know, we want to remember him. There's a legacy line that I use in my presentations. As long as you speak their names, they're never truly forgotten. Of course, Bill Gusson will never be forgotten. And I'll never forget, it was just a few years ago in the lobby of my hotel. I never really had met the man. And in the lobby of my hotel, we just happened to look at each other, and he struck up a conversation with me. He didn't know I was an instructor here. I was just a firefighter at the conference. We started talking. We sat down. And I think he even shared a challenge coin with me. And then I get home from the conference and I get an email from him, and it has some information that pertained to me as a dispatcher because it came out that I was a fire dispatcher in our conversations in the lobby. And then he never forgot me. And when I saw him the last few years, he always remembered me. That's my memory of Bill Guston, and he was just a wonderful man, and I will never forget him, as I'm sure many people will never forget him. And we want to speak his name so he's never forgotten.
Yeah, he was the salt of the earth.
Yeah.
I miss my friend. He was my partner in the Hump Day Hangout, and I miss my friend. And the other thing I will say about that is if you're having problems, if something is going on, reach out. Tom and I will take your phone call.
Absolutely.
Any other fireman will take your phone call.
24/7.
Absolutely. Reach out. Reach out. Don't fight alone.
Yeah.
Don't stand alone. Don't fight alone. Reach out. Ask someone for help.
It's a tough business.
I always tell people my story after 9/11 when my daughter looked at me and said, "Daddy, why are you always mad?" She was 6 years old. That was the hardest punch I ever took in my life. It buckled my knees, okay? And it caused me to go seek help and seek counseling. And listen, any one of you sons of guns, I won't say what I want to say, but any one of you sons of guns thinks I'm not a tough guy, come say hello and we'll find out about that. But I'm a tough guy. But that was the hardest thing that ever happened to me. And admitting it, I can still go back. I went back. I was a good fire officer, good firefighter, and I did my job. There is nothing wrong with needing to talk to somebody. No. Okay? Nothing at all, ever.
And Cap, with you coming forward like that, you coming forward and being honest and open like that, I'm sure that your message carries quite a lot of weight because, you know, you're an iconic figure in the fire service and you're a big guy and you come from the biggest department in the world, the most respected department pretty much in the world, and you having the courage to come forward and say that says a lot. So listen to what the captain says, folks. We are here for you. There's a lot of resources out there. Don't suffer alone.
If it wasn't for the counseling that I had after 9/11 when I was angry, I was at a party the day before on September 10th, and 11 men who were at that party did not see sunset the next day. And if it wasn't for the help I got, I probably wouldn't be alive. I'd be divorced. I wouldn't have my family, and I would have screwed up my entire life. So I just tell you this honestly. If you're having a problem, go talk to somebody. Call us. I'll help you. Tom will help you. Anybody at this place will help you.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
And that fits right into the professional equation. Have the resources available, and if you need the help, don't be afraid to reach out for them. Hey, Cap, I just want to cover one more thing, if I could, before we get into the article that I'm so honored to have co-authored with you. I sat in your class yesterday, Firehouse. This Firehouse rocks. Not the first time I've sat in it, because I always get little nuggets of information that maybe I didn't pick up the first time. And I think you'd agree with me. There's a line I like to use, and it's on the volunteer side, but then I'm thinking yesterday during your class, you know, Merrill, this applies to firehouses everywhere. And did you ever see the movie The Great Escape with Steve McQueen?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I came up with that term, but I apply it to a good firehouse. And I mean it in a different way. There's a great escape where everyone's tunneling to get out of the prison. But I like to refer to a well-run firehouse, a house that rocks, a house with a good culture, as a great escape. And what I mean by that is we all have stress in life. For the volunteer, it could be your paid job. But we could have family stress. We just have stress in life. To me, you should be able to go to the firehouse and be able to just kick back a little bit and be, I can escape whatever stresses are out there because I'm in my firehouse, not station or hall, a house where I'm comfortable, enjoy being at, people love me, I love the people that are here. It should not be a place that brings more conflict and makes me more stressed when I leave than when I got there. And your class, along with Captain Gagliano from Seattle, just brought that out yesterday. firehouse should be a great escape.
It absolutely should be. The firehouse should be a place of comfort, should be a place of fun. Listen, if you're not having fun, there's something wrong. Okay? Now, I will tell you very honestly, we have to be aware of harassment, any kind of thing that will hurt somebody or anything
What do you
else.
say? Fun should not hurt.
Fun should not hurt. Fun should not hurt, and there shouldn't be anything involved with religion, race, sex, or anything else. But if they sit down and they play a joke on you, you laugh.
You laugh.
You have a good time. I told you the story yesterday in a class where they hung me off the building
Yeah,
on a
who would
roof.
hang you off the building?
Well, they were hanging me off the building on a. I was doing a single slide, and you know, if you do a single slide, if they pull the rope at the bottom tight, you can't slide
You can't
anymore.
Slide no more, right?
Well, they hung me off, and they hit me with a bucket of water. And they looked at me, and they thought it was hysterical. And they said, "You got anything to say, Cap?" And I said, "Yeah." I took my helmet off, and I said, "You missed the spot." And they laughed at me. Okay, fine. But then when it came time, we went down. They were going to put the meal on the table. It was nice and hot. And I said, "Okay, well, we're going out on a drill." And they said, "Why are we going on a drill? The food's on the table." "Because I'm wet. I need to go out and air out to dry off." So they got the message, you know.
Yeah.
So it's fun. You should have fun in the firehouse. You should have a good time. You should love the men and women you work with, volunteer with, you fight fires with, and you should make it part of your culture. And it should be a place where you can go to get away from that. I mean, it's like the old Cheers song.
Right.
You know, everybody knows your name.
Yep.
You go into a place where everybody loves you. That's what you want in that firehouse.
Yes, I love it. And as I like to say, too, it should not be a house that you pull up to and you see that car is there, so you keep driving by. No, no, no. Or you decide to go in a different doorway so the people or person that's in the other doorway entrance doesn't see you because you can't stand being around them. There's something wrong there if that's happening back home. And if you ever get a chance to sit in This House Rocks with Captain Dugan or Captain Eliano from Seattle, do so, because it'll give you some great ideas on how to build that house that rocks. Great class, Cap.
Thank you
Just
very
a
much.
Great,
Appreciate
great
it.
class.
Appreciate it.
And I want you to, you just reminded me of another story. One of my favorite stories that you told, if you'd share it, that you love coffee.
I love
And
coffee.
you told a story in one of the classes I sat in with you, and I think you repeated it to me once. So, something about they had a nickname for you because of your coffee, and then they did something to your coffee, and I believe your retribution was to get them up and drill in the middle of the night or something.
We had I love coffee, and my nickname was Joe Bob. Joe, because I was always saying, "Anybody want a fresh cup of Joe? Fresh cup of Joe. Let's make some fresh Joe." And I drank coffee all the time. Well, for a while there, the jokesters in the firehouse was messing around with the coffee, and they would put in pepper flakes underneath the coffee and then open up the package of coffee and put it in the filter and all that. So you'd make a pot of coffee and it would be hot. Or they'd put salt underneath it or some kind of spice underneath it, whatever. And so one morning the guys, they were going, we're doing a side job and we're getting out early in the morning. Is that okay? We're getting out at 6 o'clock in the morning because we got to go start this big side job. I said, yeah, not a problem. They messed with my coffee. The next morning at 5:30, I got up. I hit the bells, trucks going out. We went out and they said, "Where are we going?" I said, "We're going down to Dunkin' Donuts to get coffee because I can't trust the coffee here. I want a nice cup of coffee." And they were going and they had all their jobs set. And I'm like, okay. Well, we went back at 8:30.
Oh,
I kept them out for about 2.5 hours I got my coffee. They finally would say to me every once in a while, Cap, don't drink the coffee. It's bad. We'll make you another pot. Don't drink the coffee. Okay, I get the message. Don't. But, listen, I think the fun and games in the firehouse is it's as long as it is fun and games, I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with it.
and remember, the captain gets, what was it yesterday? So 51% of the voting power. So
51%
when
of
the
the
captain
vote-
says we're going out to drill, you're going out to drill.
We're going out to drill. We're going out to drill. Yep.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I was back in around October, November. Cap called me, and said that fire engineering was looking for us to co-author an article together on a subject that, quite frankly, has become very large. No pun intended.
No pun intended.
In the recent past, we talked about it on a podcast a year ago, but we were talking about it here at FDIC last year, and it concerns fires, and not just fires, but emergency incidents in big box type structures. Big box warehouses, big box stores. There's a lot of challenges that come in these with these types of structures. These structures are springing up around the country, and in some cases, they may be in the backyard of a volunteer fire department, because they usually look to build these structures where land is cheap, access to highways is plentiful, and that could be in a rural community protected by a volunteer fire department. So fire engineering, in the April edition, which just came out, they have a supplement. It talks about the big box structures, and it talks about the importance of more air, and how if we have more air in these structures, it can give us more time to help mitigate the fire and emergencies, especially a fire situation in these structures. So the Cap and I wrote an article, Coming to a Town Near You. I encourage you to read it, because there's a lot to know with these structures. You don't want to wake up one morning and here it is in your backyard.
If you are, as I call it, the ostrich, and you're going to hide your head in the sand, and I don't know if, honestly, if ostriches do that or not, but that's the metaphor why I've always seen. Well, if you hide your head in the sand, you leave one part of you hanging out to be smacked, okay? And somebody's going to smack it. Well, one of these buildings is going to smack it. These buildings are anywhere from 250,000 square feet to 1 million plus square feet. And then they're tilt up, and they can have 4 to 5 floors inside of this stuff. They can be robotic. They can be all kinds of stuff. And they like building them in more rural settings. As you said, the land is cheap, the taxes are lower, the highway access is there. There are people who want to work. It's not a problem with traffic getting there, traffic jams. And the other thing about this is there's not the regulation. So, again, for officers, for chiefs, if this is coming to a town near you, you have to be aware. You have to be aware. Because if you hide your head in the sand, they're going to do whatever they want. There are some of these places that don't even require one-way voice communication in these places. Now, a one-way voice communication is only a PA system where you go, we have a fire alarm on the 3rd level. Everyone above the 3rd level, go down to the 2nd level, and we're going to investigate. Or, as happened in one of our examples, there's a tornado coming. Yeah. They didn't have the availability to let their people know that. Now, also in a lot of these places, they don't allow you to bring cell phones in. They don't want you on your cell phone, texting, playing games, whatever else. Understood. We don't want those in firehouse kitchens either. We want the brothers and sisters engaged with the members in the firehouse. But if you don't have these things, and this is going on in your area, you're not getting those weather alerts. You're not getting those issues about the tornadoes and anything else. So you have to be involved. Now, we can go on. There are so many different ways to look at this. The first thing you have to do is, number one, is get a seat at the table.
Got to have a seat at the table. My gosh, you don't want to wake up and all of a sudden it's in your built, right? Yeah, you need to be involved from the beginning.
From the beginning, and there are things you have to address. Again, we're talking about these buildings going in rural places. What's the water source? How much water? The couple that I know of, the fire chief required them one place to put in a 1 million gallon holding tank, another place 2 million gallons, because they did not have the water main resource for a fire in that magnitude in that area. They didn't have it. They required them to put this in, so the fire department just had someplace to hook up to get water. Just a holding tank, okay? But you put that holding tank in. What was the weather yesterday morning here?
Horrible. Rainy, cold, raining.
Freezing. I got pictures of the guys with their hands on with ice.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If that tank's there, if you don't say, oh, you've got to protect that tank from freezing. They're not going to have any kind of a heater in that tank. They're not going to have anything to monitor that tank for what's going on. You need to sit at the table.
Cap, wasn't there? I'm sorry if I could. Wasn't there a fire somewhere where they didn't have the hydrants weren't looped?
Hydrants
That
weren't
could have
looped.
maybe been
That
caught
was-
in the planning process.
In the planning process, there was one in California where there were yard hydrants. And a yard hydrant system is they build this big building and they put the hydrants around it. Well, the water main feeding the yard hydrant was a 6-inch main. So once they hooked up on that, first pumper in hooked up closer to the building, second pumper in hooked up behind the first pumper, and now they're sucking all the water out of the first pumper. They don't have anything. And you're not going to fill that water back in. You're not going to get that if you don't have it. And that was also on a dead end main. It has to be looped. You have to know all of these things. You have to say, how much water can you give us? What can you give us?
And, if I may, for the benefit of our listeners, part of being a professional is understanding some of these terms. Looped meaning water coming in from two
both
different
ends.
areas. It's not coming in from one direction. It's coming in from two directions. It's looped. And I would ask our listeners to maybe go back and review yard hydrants and maintenance in your area. Are they taken care of? Quite often, in our area anyway, a yard hydrant's the responsibility of the building owner. And if we don't have inspectors out there inspecting these hydrants and making sure the building owner is keeping the hydrants operational, you may go to use them someday and find out it hasn't been used in decades and it's really not going to do what you think it's supposed to do. In our area, my department, our SOG, SOP, whatever you want to call it, best practice, is we will use a yard hydrant, but we will only use one on a complex. And we will immediately plan. I remember when I was an incident commander, the way I was trained by my mentors was if you're going to use a yard hydrant, just use one because you might rob water from that if you tap in others. And number two, have a plan or get preparations or call mutual aid. And the only purpose for that incoming mutual aid pumper or two is to be ready to supplement the yard hydrants.
And the other thing on that also you have to be aware of is that sprinkler system hooked up to that same yard system? Because now if you're sucking water from the sprinkler system, all those firefighters that you have inside up in the ceiling fighting that fire, they're all gone. You don't have the sprinkler systems. So it's huge. Yeah. It's huge for us to make, and again, that's a seat at the table, and that's in the planning stage. Also in the planning stage, if you look at all of these buildings that work, most of them, especially if they're for online retailers, because the way we shop has changed. If they're online retailers, they work 24/7, 365. One of the places I know, the chief fought with them to get them to close the place down twice a year for 4 hours for a full-scale drill. If you don't do that beforehand, if you don't get that into your rules before you give the certificate of occupancy, once you give them the certificate of occupancy, they don't have to do what you ask. It's not a criminal. It's not anything wrong. They haven't done. But you can't get in there to drill with your people.
Right.
How are you going to train your people on this building? Have a walkthrough. How are you going to do this? Now, another one I heard, the guy said, okay, they gave us 4 hours once a year, but 2 other times a year where we can do a 2-hour walkthrough. They're not going to be shut down completely, but we can walk through at a slower time. Okay, that's fine. But if you don't do that, if you don't spend time doing it, you have to figure out what's going on.
Or they'll say, you can come on Christmas.
Yeah.
Or the 4th of July. How's that going to work for a volunteer fire company, right?
Yep. Yep.
And for anybody listening who thinks that, well, we don't have any in our town, doesn't mean it's not coming soon. Or, quite frankly, even if it's a couple towns away, if there's an emergency, you're going to be coming. Because what do we need? You say there's 3 things we need. We need people, air, and water, right? And the first one there, people. You're going to need people. And I believe you, was it the New York large box warehouse that the volunteer fire company has like 20 members or?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, they have less.
Nothing wrong with that. That's just the way it is.
That's great. They have 30
But
members.
have a plan in place ahead of time, and if you're a neighboring company, you got to be involved in that plan.
Absolutely. And they set up, and again, their chief was a very, very smart guy. They set up a whole bunch of stuff, automatic mutual aid, anything they set up. They wanted a person in charge. Because again, who's in charge of your safety there? Okay, if it's not required by your code to have someone there, who's going to meet the fire department? Where are they going to meet them? Who's going to tell them what door to go to? Who's going to tell them what's going on in the building? The other thing is, a lot of these larger buildings now are robotic. They're fully robotic, and the robots are doing 90% of the work. Well, the robots have to, the term they use is nest. They have to nest on a fire alarm. If they don't nest or there's something wrong, they can kill people because they don't know you're there. And
they just know they got to get that piece of inventory and get it over
there,
here.
and they will be running into you. So you have to understand who they are. Are they nesting? What are they doing? What happens on the alarm? What size are the standpipes in there? How far away are these things? If you get the supplement, the More Air, More Time supplement that's in with the Fire Engineering magazine, and look at some of the pictures that were taken in some of these places, the size of these facilities is amazing. You probably don't have enough hose on your first-in engine to stretch from one side to the other.
Right. And I know, and you know this, there's people out there that think it ain't ever going to happen. Ain't ever going to. They're sprinklered. They got the modern building construction. Well, guess what, folks? Not only is it going to happen, it already has happened. And in the supplement, we outline several instances of some of these fires, right, Cap?
Absolutely. And there are, you can just go on any type of video sharing site or anything else and just type in fulfillment centers, big box warehouse fires, and come up with all kinds of fires, smoke conditions, and everything else. You can also type in emergencies and come up with hurricanes, storms, tornadoes, everything else. What are you going to do?
Right.
And again, if your department has not taken a proactive stance here, there is going to be no one who's in charge of employee safety, who's in charge of taking care of these people. Somebody has to be responsible for these. There was one that was destroyed by a tornado. I think 6 people died in that one. Okay? They were killed in this building, which is a tilt-up warehouse, and the side walls came down and collapsed, and the people were killed. This is something that is happening frequently, and it's coming. It's all over. It's all over. I highly recommend that you go into your mobile device and just go to a Maps app and type in big box, fulfillment, warehouse, warehouses locally, and see where they are and document them in your area.
Yeah.
And very honestly, if you've never been in that space, you had better go over there and find out what's in there, what's being stored in there. I mean, the one in California was all TVs and electronics, okay? Other ones, it's the lithium-ion batteries that are being sold. I mean, if you get a package now delivered at home and it has lithium-ion batteries and it has to have special labeling on it and everything else when it comes to your house. These are important things. If we are hiding our head in the sand, we are not paying attention to it.
You know, one last thing I want to say about it. It doesn't have to be a fire. It could be a medical emergency call. But these enormous warehouses, where is the person? And is it talked about ahead of time about maybe explaining what entrance to use? Are the doors lettered or numbered? Is your dispatch center familiar with asking those types of questions? How do we get to the patient? Can you have somebody meet the fire department or EMS agency? Doesn't have to be the big fire. Could be a medical emergency, a small electrical hazard, even just a minor smoke condition. But these types of questions still need to be asked and answered and actually thought of ahead of time to make the operation run smoother. Agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to understand all of that stuff. And you have to train your dispatchers on
Yep.
what you want them to ask. You have to train your people. You have to train your officers on what you want them to do. And then you have to think about how you're going to attack this fire. If you're going to attack this fire, are you going into something that's over 1 million square feet with a hose line that's 50 feet high? You know, what are we doing? What is our plan? Are we just making sure all of the people are out? What is our plan? But if we don't have someone who's in charge, on a person in charge of employee safety,
Do you know that they're out?
we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
We have to know what's going on in there.
Right.
You know, with the tornado, how many people were working in the building? Well, the guy who knew all of that, unfortunately, he's gone. So who's going to tell us all this information? Where are we going to get all this information? And we have to plan it. We have to have that seat at the table, and we have to make sure that we are involved in doing this in our department. It is a huge issue, and they are popping up all over the United States of America. Listen, my wife is an online shopper. Come Christmas time, the amount of packages, I feel like I spent half my Christmas vacation recycling cardboard, okay? It's amazing, but it's the way it is.
That's our world.
It's our world. So this is going to be our world and going to be your world. Spend some time getting familiar with what's coming into your world and spend some time doing this.
As the article says, come into a town near you soon.
Yes.
Come into a town near you
And
soon.
very honestly, most of them are already there.
Yeah.
Most of them are already there.
And if they're already sprung up, it's not too late to put a plan in action. We talked about getting a seat at the table ahead of time. If you didn't have an opportunity to do that, or now you identify, hey, there's some around us that aren't in our first due, but it's going to be our first due if our neighbors are going because they're going to be calling us. It's not too late to start planning now. You don't bury your head in the sand, as you said.
Don't bury your head in the sand. And very honestly, if it's your neighboring department and they are hiding their head in the sand, guess what? To save firefighters' lives, it's going to come on you.
Right.
And you're going to have to go out there and do that. You're
Right.
going to have to spend the time, spend the energy, spend the capital of your fire department, spend that time out there investigating all of these things because it is so vitally important that you pre-plan these things and have an idea, okay?
Yeah.
You need, as we said, we need the air, we need the water, we need the personnel. Now, another thing we could talk about, and we don't have that much more time with you folks, but we could talk about for hours, is just the department's SOGs on search ropes,
Oh, yeah? Yeah, right.
okay? I mean,
Are you going into the building without a search rope?
crazy. Are you going in with a tick? Well, guess what? Technology fails. The thermal imaging camera fails, okay? If you're going in with a search rope, do you have a procedure? Do you have a procedure for the search rope? Okay, one of the things that I like to say is most departments don't differentiate a search rope from a search for fire or search for victims. Okay?
Right.
If I'm searching for fire, I'm only advancing that hose line in 50 feet, the reach of the stream, before, I'm sorry, I'm only advancing in on the search line 50 feet before I bring a hose line in to protect the men and women on my search line. The reach of the stream, 50 feet.
50 feet.
Okay? We're not going in there. If we're going in there searching for fire, we're not going more than, I'm not going in there 250, 300 feet, and all of a sudden conditions change,
And you have-
similar to the super sofa warehouse,
Sure.
where conditions go bad, we're not getting back out. I need someone there to protect me.
Right.
I need a hose line there. Now, if we've got water on the fire, we know where the fire is. Now we're looking for the missing security guard, the personnel. That's a different search. That's a different search. But these are all things that have to be considered before you decide to operate on these places. And it's just so vitally important that our officers, our chief officers, our fire commissioners know what they're doing, because the possibility of losing young men and women in these type of buildings is real. It's a real situation for us, and we need to have some kind of plan for this.
100%. And again, it's the April edition of Fire Engineering Magazine, and the supplement is titled More Air, More Time. And there's some incredible articles in here. It's not the Cap and I didn't write the only article in here. Mike Champ, who delivered that very emotional and just awesome keynote address today. Has an article in there where he's very honest about his cancer diagnosis, the treatment he underwent, and it's titled "Which Mask Do You Want to Wear?" And it's about taking care of yourself at an emergency scene and properly wearing your gear and PPE and masking up. An incredible article that's in there. There's another wonderful article in there, very informative article about climbing stairs, ascending high-rise fires, because those are big box structures
They're
as
big
well.
box structures, yes.
Yes.
You know, what we call the big box stores, and I'm using this from Jack Murphy, is they call them ground scrapers. They're not skyscrapers, they're ground scrapers.
Yes.
They're huge.
Yes.
They're ground scrapers. And Jimmy Davis wrote an unbelievably detailed article about the physiology, what it's going to take to climb those stairs with the hose, with your air pack, and some of the stuff that some of us never even thought of.
Right.
You know, taking your coat off, putting it over,
drape it over the cylinder
so you can breathe.
Breathe, yeah.
Okay.
Take your helmet off.
Take your helmet off.
Get the air right.
Yeah, you've
your
got to
heat
let
escapes
yourself.
off your head.
You got to let yourself cool.
Yeah. And then the fascinating article that ends the supplement. I don't know if you had a chance to read it yet.
Oh, yes.
Is the article written by Daniel DeYear about the community that sprung up in Texas, just 30 minutes north of Austin in Taylor, Texas, where this community just took off, and they had to move in all these construction workers, electricians, and the community just, as I said, just the size of the community just skyrocketed. But it was in regards to, was it Sylvania? I forget what the plant was. Samsung, that they were building a plant. And luckily, Samsung was very progressive and proactive and put in some things to help the fire department if there was an emergency, including addressing the last part of the three things that you're going to need: people, water, and air. You want to talk a minute about the air and the problem and the importance of air? We all know about the importance of air, but we need a standpipe for air in these buildings. Samsung took care of that.
Samsung took care of that. They put the FAR system in there, the firefighter air replenishment system. They put it in this huge structure. I forget how many hundreds of thousands square feet it was, but they put this in because, very honestly, anybody on air, how far can you go on a 30-minute bottle?
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And there's a system set up where they allow this to go in there. They have air. They're going to have to put standpipes in these big buildings. You're going to have standpipes in the middle of the building where we can supply water, where we can get to a hose outlet and stretch, because how much hose is it going to take? Look at some of the pictures in our article that my buddy John Feehan took.
Right.
Look at how far some of these places are. They're thousands and thousands of feet long. How are you going to get this water there? We have to have these things in place.
Yep.
So I'm very honestly, very proud of this supplement, very proud of all of the people who are in here and how much information is there. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us, and we'll gladly give you more information on this. But let me tell you something. Brothers and sisters, if this is coming to your town, you better start doing your legwork. You better start paying attention, because you do not want to get caught.
And it could easily be in the backyard of a rural volunteer fire department. It's not all suburban or urban volunteer fire departments. It's not all suburban or urban paid fire departments. It could be in a rural volunteer community, and many of them are as well. So it could be coming to a town near you, and we best be prepared.
Yep. So it's coming. It's going to be a part of what you're dealing with. And I got to be honest with you, this has been great to talk to you again about the Professional Volunteer Fire Department and be at FDIC with all of our friends. And if you're here, you're walking down the hallways, please say hi. Please come up and introduce yourself. And again, pay attention to what's coming in your community. You know, I go back to my career, and I remember starting in the three-quarter coats and the rubber boots, okay, riding the back step into bunker gear, and the things that came down, it was, you know, the different things that were going to kill us and everything
Yep.
else. It's now we're into the lithium ion stage and everything else. Brothers and sisters, be like my friend Bill Gustin. Be like our friend Bill. Be a student of
Never
the game.
stop.
Never stop learning.
Yep.
And if you have a question, ask it. The stupidest question in the fire service is one not asked.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I like to say, and I say it in my presentation, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, never stop being a student of the game. When you do that, it's time to retire and step aside. Cap, thank you for joining me. The supplement, again, more air, more time. It's in this month's edition of Fire Engineering Magazine. I highly encourage you to check it out. There's a lot of great information in there. Remember, folks, thank you so much for being here. And again, the podcast was brought to you by Firehouse Subs. We thank them very much. FDIC 2025, another great experience. I'm looking forward to the next 3-4 days that I'm still here. Folks, thank you for joining in. Tom Merrill here from the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. My thanks to my guest, Mike Dugan. And remember, your residents are owed professional service that's delivered by professional firefighters representing a professional organization. Take care, folks.